Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
You'll have to excuse my lack of detail here. Most of my story was retold to me by my parents because I was very young when it happened. I do still remember some of it though. I also apologize for not green texting, not a huge fan of writing that way. I was about 4 or 5 when my parents and I moved in with my aunt and uncle. We were strapped for cash and they had offered us the spare bedrooms in their new house, which we gladly accepted. As days went on, my mother would notice some abnormal things. She was a stay-at-home mother at the time, so she spent most of her time looking after me. Every so often she would find me talking to someone as I played with my toys. Someone that wasn't there. She would ask me about it and, every time, I would tell her I was playing with my friend Justin. She had shrugged it off as an imaginary friend until one day when she asked me where Justin came from. I told her that he lived in the house before we did. Now, this isn't too strange coming from a kid with an overactive imagination, but she felt it was worth mentioning to my aunt. Upon telling my aunt what I had said, my aunt got very nervous. She told my mom to wait here while she went and grabbed something. She came back with a picture. It was a picture my aunt and uncle took when they were buying the house. In the picture, they were standing on the front porch holding each other and smiling. My mom asked her why he was showing her this, and my aunt told her to look in the window at the far left. In the window stood a family of 3. A man dressed in a suit, a woman in a white dress, and a young child peeking over the window sill. No one else was in the house at the time that the picture was taken. For as long as we lived in that house, I never stopped talking to Justin. I was convinced he was there, and my mother slowly got more and more concerned. Her and my father discussed what they should do about the situation. My dad ended up convincing my mom to leave it be, seeing as whatever I was talking to wasn't harming me in any way. Despite not being aggressive, it really creeped out my family. Every so often, they would hear my toys being played with in my room long after I had gone to bed. When they would look in my room to investigate, I would be sound asleep, but my toys would be scattered around the room. One really bizarre thing that happened was when my parents decided to go out for a date night. My aunt and uncle decided to watch a movie, seeing as I was already asleep. They had never seen The Sixth Sense, so they thought they'd give it a try. Near the end of the movie, they heard a loud thump coming from my room. Reasonably spooked, they peered into my room and saw me on the floor. This may not seem that strange, but my bed was a twin-sized mattress in a queen or double-sized frame. If I had just simply rolled out of bed, I would have landed inside the bed frame. In order for me to have gotten onto the floor of my room, I would have had to have been picked up and dropped. Aside from minuscule events such as my father feeling chills as he walked through the hall and random sounds heard by my parents, there wasn't much else that happened in that house. There is one story I haven't told yet. It's one that I actually remember and don't think I'll ever forget. While living at their house, I loved playing in the backyard. My aunt and uncle had a dog that I would play with all the time. One day while I was playing outside, my mom and aunt were sitting at the dining room table talking. All of a sudden I ran into the house weeping. They thought I had gotten hurt, so they rushed over to me and asked what was wrong. I was hysterical for a few minutes, but once I had calmed down a bit, I told them I had seen people hanging from the trees in the neighbor's yard. They were pretty confused, so they took me back outside to show them what I meant. When we got outside, I pointed to the trees and told them again that there were people hanging from the branches. They didn't see anything, but I was visibly horrified by what I was trying to show them, so they took me back inside. It took a long time for me to go and play in the backyard again. A lot of people that I tell this story to chalk it up to my imagination playing tricks on me. The image that's burnt into my mind of the 3 people hanging from that tree begs to differ. I wish that someone would have looked into the history of that area so I could have some answers or maybe an idea of what I had seen, but unfortunately, no one wanted to. Oddly enough, since we moved out, my aunt and uncle have had 3 children of their own, none of which have had any paranormal experiences. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe I'm just more attuned to whatever energy is in that house. Who knows?
Be young. Nightmares reduced me to a sniveling little wuss. Have a nightmare wherein I wake up in bed, feel completely filled with deep dread. Rush out from my covers towards the door. As I open it, I hear a scream and wake up in bed again. Constant cycle. Felt like I did this for God knows how long. Each time I woke up, my dread was worse than before. After what felt like days, something different happened. Pitch black around me. Wet. Freezing. Walk around but feel sharp pains everywhere. Slowly recognize where I am in the darkness. It's a park nearby my school. Walk home. Reach the door and try to open it. Overpowering dread dominates me. Wake up in bed. This time though it's daytime. Rush to the door. Nearly eat shit as I feel sharp pains and vertigo. Open it. It opens. Cry out for my mom. She comes out from the end of the hall and my dad appears from the stairs. They both rush to hug me. Start recognizing my wound. Wrapped in bandages, hand is in a cast, and my eye is covered. Broken pinky, lacerations down my abdomen, a gash on my head, and a fractured iris. Apparently I was gone for 3 days, and once I appeared, I was covered in these wounds. On top of that I was extremely malnourished and madly delirious. Wouldn't stop screaming about needing to go home to everybody around me, including my parents. Would scream whenever a door would open during this period. Discharged after being treated by parents. Have no memory of this at all. Have no memory of where I went those 3 days. 13 years later I still get uneasy when my door isn't locked before I go to sleep.
Be around 8 years old. I am 23 now. Live in an old house in Portage, Wisconsin for my childhood during the summer and a few winters. Live in Florida during the school year. We move into this old house and renovate it, tear down walls, put up walls, etc. Parents love this little house. Dad researches the house's history and finds that it was a surgeon's quarters back in the 1800s or something like that. While we're renovating, we make the basement larger. Digging the foundation, we find all these old pots, pottery fragments, vials, jars, and stuff. That was pretty cool. Basement is really big. Basically a whole other level of the house. No shit, that's what basements are, with separate rooms. From the room in the basement with the washer, dryer in it, there is a smaller room attached with this shitty little wooden gate-type door. It looked way out of place and didn't really cover the whole doorway. Gate is sort of haphazardly attached to the cement door frame and a padlock keeps it from swinging open. We can see around the upper and lower ends of the doorway that the room appears to be entirely filled from floor to ceiling with wet, stinking dirt. It wasn't so foul that it made everything stink, but when you got close you could smell it. We don't do anything with that room, or the door to it. Weird stuff happens on occasion while we're there over the next few summers. My bedroom is located directly above the dirt room, as we called it, on the main floor. For some reason in the far corner of my room there are a handful of small, finger-sized holes drilled into the floor. Look down. See nothing, whatever. Wake in the middle of the night to loud banging. I can clearly tell it's the wooden door being pushed against and then slamming back against the doorway. I can hear the little metal latch with padlock clinking. Sound is louder by the holes. Listen near the holes and banging stops after a few seconds. My dog, who has no fear of stairs at all, refuses to go down there, or be near the door to the basement, or even that end of the hallway. He also does not come into my room a single time in all the years we stay there. Always feel watched and uncomfortable in my bedroom. I'm never in there except to sleep. I always seem to see something darting around just out of my vision, like shadows and shit. Have recurring dreams where I see myself sleeping and I'm slowly drifting as though being pulled toward the basement door. It flies open and I glide down the stairs, through the dark basement and into the laundry room. I'm thinking, no, I don't want to go back to that room. I can't go back, and I'm very distressed. The gate starts flailing against its latch as I draw near, then flies open. Suddenly everything quickly rewinds in really fast motion and I'm yanked back out of the basement, back up the stairs into my room, and I see myself and then I wake up immediately. Fast forward. I'm 13 to 14. My mom is paralyzed from aggressive cancer, and I now do all the laundry. The basement only has one light for the entire thing, and it's a shitty little pull cord single light bulb hanging in the middle of the room. Have to keep a hand on the wall in the total darkness to navigate to the pull switch. Fucking hate going down there at any time of the day. It's always dark as fuck no matter what. I'm a pretty calm person and I don't scare easily. I always feel incredibly anxious and uncomfortable the entire time I'm down there. Hair on the nape of my neck is always standing up and I have goosebumps for no real reason. Feel like I'm being watched intensely every second I'm in the laundry room. Get that uncomfortable feeling like when you're in a fun, haunted house and you know people are in there waiting to jump scare you, but you don't know when or how. Have the basement layout memorized so I can turn off the light and sprint to the doorway to the stairs in total darkness because the urge to escape from there once I'm leaving gets so intense I want to crawl out of my skin. Like I'm being followed, chased out. My mom has a few weeks, days left to live now. She's still with it for the most part. She talks about this little boy she sees in my bedroom pushing something out the window. He looks sad and he's always doing it whenever she sees him. He doesn't acknowledge her ever. Another child she sees is a little girl in a velvet dress. She always has one arm behind her back and she looks angry all the time. She usually hovers near the ceiling and looks down at her. She never does anything as far as I can remember. Third child is another little girl. She talks to my mom about what being dead is like. She's nice to her, and warns her about the bad man that sometimes comes. Now, this bad man is a motherfucker. I don't know what his deal is, but he always pulled shit on us. All the child ghosts would leave immediately right before he came every time, says my mom. Family is talking in the living room. I'm sitting on the couch next to her wheelchair. Mom says something like, "They're gone." She's talking to me, suddenly stops, disengages the conversation entirely, looks scared, and turns away. I feel really cold suddenly. I move to the other side of the room. Mom picks up conversation right where we left off, like nothing happened. Ask her what the fuck. She tells me the dark man comes and sort of occupies our spot with us, so she has to look at him to talk to us. All of us note feeling unusually cold. Remember, it's summer. This old house has no AC. When she says he's sitting in one of us. She describes him as being really tall and scary looking. Mostly just a really dark outline with a hateful, angry face. On the rare times he's communicated with her, he threatens to take her. Doesn't specify where or how. My mom dies in my bedroom. We moved her stuff in there because it was easier, Atmosphere super uncomfortable in there now. Close the door and never open it again. We sell the house and move out. Haven't been back since.
Excuse me for not green texting these stories, it's just that I hate this format of storytelling. I had quite a lot of spooky occurrences happen to me. I'll convey them in a chronological order. When I was a little kid of no more than 5 years, me and my family lived in an apartment of which we moved out. That place had a bad vibe to it. I never felt safe in it. As if someone was always watching me. I was not the only one who felt discomfort there. My mom reported feeling bad there as well. The first scary memory that I have from that place was when I was in the living room with my parents one evening. I felt inclined to look at the display window of the closet from close up, so I walked toward it. When I got close enough, I noticed a white face looking back at me. Even though I was scared, I didn't back up or called my parents. I felt hypnotized. I can't remember what happened after that. After we moved out of the apartment, I saw one of the videotapes my father recorded of me and my sister playing in the living room. Everything was normal in the video, but something was wrong in the audio. Over the voices of me and my sister playing, there was a metallic, male droning sound. It kept getting louder and louder until the video cuts to another film session. The second scary memory that I have from that apartment is by far the scariest thing that ever happened to me. I was lying awake in my bed one night when suddenly I saw a white head peeping over the side of my bed. The shape of it resembled that of a sheet ghost. The only facial features that I can remember from it were black eyes. The head kept peeping out and then going back to hide under my bed. He just kept repeating this action in total silence. Eventually I covered myself with the blanket and I can't remember what happened after that. After I got older, I came across the story of the Flatwoods Monster. As I read about it, I became shocked as to how much the creature described sounded familiar. I even remember reading some eyewitness reports saying that sometimes his head is the only thing visible, just like in my case. Pick related, that's the guy the first saw only without his body. Another weird thing in relation to the story was that I received the exact debunking theory about the creature from some guy the first told the story to a long time ago. That it might have been an owl. Strange coincidence maybe. My mother used to say that at the time there were a lot of UFO reports in our region. My father even has a video recording that he took of a bright light hovering silently in front of our building. After this, a similar event happened to me when I was in kindergarten. I was minding my own business outside when I saw a head with strange facial features peeking over the fence wall and then going back down. Just like the creature that I saw in my bedroom did. This one looked more human, though, and it wasn't white. I'm not sure if I was the only one seeing him, because I wasn't alone out there. After my 6th birthday, we moved out of that cursed apartment to another apartment in the same city. The new place didn't have a bad vibe to it, but I still had scary things happen to me. Before I convey the things that happened in the apartment we moved to, I will tell you the story of a very peculiar event that happened in the new kindergarten I went to after we moved. There was this kid in my kindergarten that was kind of a weirdo. Nobody hang around with him and he was pretty much a loner. One day all of us kids were playing hide and seek in the yard. After a couple of rounds, we suddenly hear someone scream in pain. From the corner of the yard, the weirdo kid comes crawling out, covered in blood, and I mean fucking completely covered in blood, howling like a lunatic. He didn't seem to have any visible injury on him. Just tons of blood. The kindergarten teacher rushed to him and took him somewhere. After he was taken, I realized that not only did we play several rounds without finding him, but also, the place he crawled out of was just a small corner in the yard next to the outer walls of the kindergarten structure. That place was searched through several times and there was nothing in there that could hurt him like that. We were never told what happened to him and he returned after a couple of days, refusing to say what went wrong. This was all nice and good, except it happened 3 more times since then. We would all be playing outside when suddenly he would crawl out of there, howling and covered in blood from head to toe. I was in school with him when we got older, and when I asked him regarding it, he would say he doesn't know what I am talking about, but he was visibly upset when I mentioned this. Now onward to the scary things that happened in the new apartment, the one I live in now. When me and my sister were still kids, we used to sleep together in the same room on a double bunk bed. One day I went to sleep on the top bunk, knowing that tomorrow my grandmother would come to visit us. I was pretty excited. I woke up in the middle of the night with the door to our room open and a shadowy figure standing at the entrance. I was convinced that it was my grandmother who came early, and so I called out her name. The figure just kept standing there without moving or replying to me. I then fell back to sleep immediately, as if all of my strength was sucked out of me. When I woke up in the morning, my grandmother didn't arrive yet. This is not the first time I saw what I consider to be a shadow person. After I grew up, I was moved to the room at the end of the corridor. That room had a door leading to a bathroom. One night I woke up to see the door to the bathroom open and a shadowy figure standing at the entrance. I thought it was my mother this time, so I called out her name, but the figure didn't reply. Then I felt again as if the strength was sucked out of me, and I fell back to sleep. The third and last time I saw that figure was when I woke up in the middle of the night, lying on the floor with my face down. I was paralyzed, and I could sense that the same shadowy figure was standing over me. I can't remember what happened after that and if I woke up on the floor that morning or not. The following story is what I consider to be the second scariest thing that ever happened to me. I was woken up in the middle of the night by the voice of my mother shouting at me from her bedroom, "Stop making loud noises, Anon." As I was trying to understand what was going on, I noticed there was a loud noise coming out from beneath my bed. There were a lot of heavy boxes under there, filled with my toys. As a kid I could barely move them, and what was down there was really going at it at full force, kicking them around. I shouted back at her that it wasn't me. She didn't believe me because she was an asshole. All of a sudden the noises stopped. I looked toward the bathroom door and I saw a young lady with her back to me, wearing a classic Victorian-era pink dress, floating above the ground and moving toward the closed bathroom door. She went through the door, and that is all that there was to it. Never saw that girl again. The last thing that was out of order in this apartment was when I woke up early in the morning to the sound of a man shouting, as if in pain, from what sounded like the hallway. I thought I was imagining it and I went back to sleep. Next morning my father asked if I was shouting during the night. The last scary thing that happened to me was when I was with my whole extended family in the apartment of my aunt after my grandmother died. We all heard knocking on the entrance door. It was late at night and we weren't expecting any guests. The knocking wouldn't stop until we opened the door to see there was nothing there. It happened several times during the week following her death. That's all, folks.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Oh